I want you two to tell me what you were doing in here. Were you misbehaving? Do I need to call your parents? Jessica, do I need to call your father again?
No, please.
I only want us to be friends. Nobody's in trouble yet. Does one of you think you can make this right? Jessica? Jessica, look at me. Will you pray with me?
Father Loutermilch is one of the most mysterious characters that Blake Langermann will have to deal with during the events of the game Outlast 2. What makes Loutermilch such a perplexing character is that who he is and what he's done is relayed to us through the fracturing mind of Blake, a narrator who seems to be somewhat unreliable. During the events of the game, Blake will have flashbacks to his childhood that heavily involve this wicked pastor, both in memories as he truly was, and in nightmares as the monster that Blake had remembered him to be.
Oh, be careful, little hands, what you do. Oh, be careful, little hands, what you do.
The story of Father Loutermilch as we know it begins with his occupation as a priest and teacher at the St. Sybil Catholic School. While we know very little of Loutermilch before his involvement with Blake and Blake's friend Jessica, we do know that he taught the subject of music at St. Sybil, and was a deeply manipulative and disturbed individual. Though we never learn the extent of Loutermilch's perversions, we do know that he was a man who had very twisted desires relating to his young students, with the main child of his attention being a young girl named Jessica Gray. Loutermilch was infatuated with Jessica. From the shadows of her life, he would watch her, quietly desiring to be the one who would teach her the ways of adulthood. Loutermilch seemed to think of Jessica as a test from God. He saw her as powerful, ripe with so many possibilities, constantly flirting with him to test his devotion. But, try as he might, he couldn't keep himself from deeply wanting to be with her. He would devise ways in which to separate her from her classmates. Things like keeping her back from a school field trip, isolating her from her peers so as to make her easier prey. It's unclear as to how far he took these desires, however, and while it's entirely possible that the unfortunate girl had many run-ins with this disgusting priest, Loutermilch's desires were a closely guarded secret. That is, until the winter of 1995, when Father Loutermilch would find the perfect opportunity to pounce on the young student, and would do just that.
What don't you know, Jessica?
Oh, sorry,
What are the two of you doing in here?
I'm sorry, Father Loutermilch. We stayed after school for journal? We were just leaving.
Let's step back into class, please.
Blake?
Late one evening after school, Blake and Jessica had stayed after an evening journal class, just talking in the kitchen. As they attempted to leave the building following their conversation, they were confronted by none other than Father Loutermilch, who saw this as the perfect opportunity to get Jessica all to himself. Questioning the pair, Loutermilch threatened to call their parents, telling Blake that he wasn't in trouble yet, but that he needed to leave so that he and Jessica could pray. Loutermilch all but forced Blake out the door of the music room. And once he was gone, Loutermilch could no longer contain himself. While we don't know the specifics of what happened behind the music room doors, it's almost certain that it was some kind of sexual assault. Luckily, Jessica managed to get away from her captor, running through the halls of the school, screaming out for any help that she could find, as Loutermilch chased after her. Though we don't know the exact events that unfolded in the hallways of the school, Blake would later find his classmate dead at the foot of a stairwell, Father Loutermilch telling him that it wasn't what he thought it was. Jessica had died as a result of Loutermilch's pursuit, and Loutermilch knew that Blake was the key to escaping the consequences. Through unknown means, Loutermilch convinced Blake not to tell anyone of the tragedy, manipulating Blake into silence and staging the whole thing as a suicide, likely blaming Jessica's well-documented issues at home. And though the young girl that he'd been pining over was now gone, Loutermilch was actually happy that her temptation had been removed from his life, thanking God for doing what he could not, for killing the flirty little girl that had been invading his every thought.
Dear Lord, sweet Jesus, forgive my sins and accept my gratitude. Thank you, God, for killing the child.
While we don't know what became of Loutermilch after Jessica's death, seeing as he got away from the consequences, it's likely that he continued his tenure at St. Sybil, the staff and students never finding out about his devilish little secret. However, in the mind of Blake Langermann, Loutermilch was a permanent resident. Guilt, anger, and repression forging a mental creation of the music teacher that resembled the monster that he knew him to be. This monster would haunt Blake for the rest of his life, the guilt of his own inaction ensuring that his mind never left St. Sybil. Father Loutermilch is a truly disgusting person, a man of faith who used his position to manipulate and destroy the lives of not only Jessica Gray, but Blake Langermann as well. And even after seemingly murdering a young child, he felt no remorse for his actions, only caring for the repercussions that this could bring on him, worrying nothing for the life that he'd snuffed out. Loutermilch is one of the most evil people in Blake's life, embodying every bit of the monster that Blake sees him as. His role made all the worse, seeing as he would seemingly never pay for the crimes that he committed, and the lives that he ruined.